All right, so I hope you guys like my new mic, coming in fresh, getting ready for season 3. So this is the key takeaway post, my episode titled Fitness Retirement Plan with Mary Devanes. My mom, I did a special Mother's Day episode with her. In that episode, we talked about 2 different things. We talked a little bit about how important it is to have passion because, when you chase dreams and you follow love and you do the things that inspire you, it helps to create movement, right? I say the word emotion has motion in it. So emotion makes us move, right? So we talked a little bit about that, but then we dove into some specifics. Think about what are the physical things you want to be able to do in the later years of your life, and then what do we have to be able to do today in order to be able to achieve that. And, what I want to do right now is really talk a little bit more about that part. And so the essence of what I'm trying to get at here is that if you want to be able to be independent in the later years of your life, your 70s, 80s, 90s, hundreds, right? You have to be above average in those ages. And if you want to be above average in the later years of your life, you have to be above average in your 20s and your 30s and your younger years in order to be able to build this reserve of fitness, because aging is going to happen and it's going to get after all of us. And so you need to be able to have a bigger reserve to pull from as aging is taking away from you. And in my opinion, you have to be above average in the later years of your life in order to really maintain your independence, right? To be able to do the things that an average human being would be expected to do, such as maybe go to the store, get your groceries, carry them up 2 flights of stairs, travel independently and carry your own luggage, put it in an overhead bin, to be able to hold a grandchild, to be able to jog, maybe even be able to play a sport or something like that in order to keep your mind and body engaged. And so if we want to have this independence, if we want to be able to do things on our own, I believe that we have to be above average in those later years of our life. So I also find it hard to think that I might one day just get to an age where all I can do is walk, right? So, we know that in order to preserve our mind, in addition to our body, we need to be engaging with stuff. We need to interact with people and we need to interact with our environment. And that's in a physical sense, but it could also be language, music, other things, right? But my physical body plays a big part with that. And when I engage with people and my environment in dynamic ways, it preserves my brain health, right? So we know that as people are able to move less, their movement variety decreases, their ability to interact with people in the world decreases, they're more sedentary, the more their brain starts to deteriorate as well. Interesting thing, Dr. San Milan, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but I heard him say Alzheimer's has the potential to be considered something more like type 3 diabetes. So some researchers are saying that we should actually rename Alzheimer's to type 3 diabetes. Not everybody's fully convinced on that, but just this idea that we understand that the brain and the body are deeply connected. Our metabolic health, our movement, all of these things are tied to our brain function. So it's the same thing with this. If I want to be able to age well, if I want my brain to be able to age well, and if I want to stay mentally sharp and not have a drastic cognitive decline, I have to be able to engage with people and my environment. And sports and games and all of these things are great ways to do that. Maybe I'm not able to play, tackle football like I used to, but maybe I can play a game of pickleball, right? But there needs to be things that I'm engaging with that are unpredictable, that I kind of have to figure out. They're a bit of a game. There's there's this unpredictable nature to it, and I have to be able to react to it. You think about martial arts or dance, there's some complexity there. But my main point is that as you're aging, this is not just about maintaining independence, but it's also about being able to maintain your brain health. The more movement variety that I have, the more likely I'm able to engage in a variety of different types of activities with people and my environment. And the more that's probably going to also preserve my brain health. So this is a huge part for that as well. So my point here is not about, turning everybody into an athlete and becoming an extremist of anything like that, but it's more so to hit home the point about the priority of movement in your life and to understand how important it is to invest in fitness in your youth and the fact that you have to do this every single day. You have to make it a part of your life. It's about providing a motivation so that you stay motivated to do these things in the young years of your life and to do them frequently, and really to understand how frequent I'm actually talking about. So let's, get into a little bit of numbers here. Let's say I want to be able to jog when I'm 70 years old at a comfortable pace. So we'll say that's about 6 miles per hour. 6 miles per hour is about a 10-minute mile. So at 70, can I run a 10-minute mile? If we understand about how fast, and again, these numbers are going to be very rough. I don't like giving concrete numbers because you often trap yourself in a box where there's going to be studies and research that prove it wrong, right? And there's so many things and components and nuances about, maybe how many days a week I'm training or genetics and all of these things. But if you don't give any concrete numbers, I think people get lost and they don't understand, or the point doesn't get hit home the way that I would like it to. So I'm going to give these concrete numbers, but understand that they are very rough and loose, but will give you an idea. So when it comes to running that 10-mile run in your 70s, in order to be able to do that, I would say when you do the math on it, if you look at VO2 max and you see about how much we lose per decade, we lose about 10% of our VO2 max per decade. In my 30s, that then means I need to run about a 7 to 8 minute mile, right? So that's a pretty, that's at the above average, and, you're getting close to the elite level, as you're thinking about some of this. So in my 30s, I need to be able to run about a 7 to 8 minute mile in order to run a 10-minute mile in my 70s if I'm considering about a 10% decrease per decade. Now, a 10% decrease in VO2 max doesn't necessarily mean you'll have a 10% decrease in your running mile time, right? But again, these are rough numbers to be able to give you an idea about what I'm talking about here, right? So to jog comfortably in your 70s, you have to be above average in your 20s and 30s. And in order to be above average in your 20s and 30s, this is not about being an athlete and competing at a high level. This is about preserving your fitness and your brain and body health. I need to do this stuff every day in my 20s and 30s. I almost have to be like an elite athlete. Now, the difference between an elite athlete and a general population person, I would say the similarities are that the time put in should be very similar. Every single day I need to train. The difference is really about one, maybe my genetics are different from them, right? So I'm not able to reach the cap that they are or be able to get that high. But the other piece is about variety. When I'm general population, I want to invest in my time in a bunch of different things. Whereas the, elite athlete, they might be training for a marathon and that's all they do. They just run all the time. And that has the potential to lean into like overuse injuries, repetitive issues, stuff like that. And in general population, we want to spread the wealth a bit. Maybe one day, riding my bike, and maybe another day I'm swimming. I can do a couple different things in order to preserve my aerobic health. So, I have more variety. I'm participating in more of a recreational sense. I'm not so stressed on, sticking to one thing and being so specific to that one thing. But my time put in is not that different. We both, me and the elite athlete, both have to resistance train. We both have to invest in our aerobic health, and we both have to do these things on the day to day. So before we get too far, though, I want to give you one more example, and I want to go with the 100-meter sprint. And reason being is because jogging in your 70s sounds pretty good. I like that. But for myself, I think the idea of being able to play a sport or a game, something like ultimate frisbee or flag football even, but let's take ultimate frisbee because there's no contact, and I think that's better as we're aging. But playing a game of ultimate frisbee in my 70s sounds intriguing to me, the idea of being able to still do that. So in order to do that, I need to be able to run a little bit faster. The average recreational 100-meter sprint, by the way, a 100-meter sprint is kind of like that straightaway on the track. So if you go one lap around the track, if you divided it into four, one of those, right? So the track, most average tracks can be 400 meters. So, one straightaway is that 100-meter. Think about your Usain Bolt, just kind of like that one quick, fast straightaway that he dominates in. So the average person could do that 100-meter sprint in about 17 seconds. And if I'm going to be a recreational, and again, that's about like an average recreational person, if I want to play with average recreational people, I probably should be able to do that 100-meter sprint also in about 17 seconds. I mean, if it was a little less, fine. I don't want to be too drastically low because I'm going to be too slow to be able to keep up with them. So in order to run a 17-second 100-meter sprint in my 70s, we have to consider, again, these are very rough numbers, but if we're losing a little bit more per decade with power, right? Power decreases maybe more like 15% per decade. So in order to run that in my 70s, I need to be able to run about an 11 to 12 second 100-meter sprint in my 30s. So again, in order to run a 100-meter sprint at about 17 seconds in my 70s, if I consider the 15% power decrease per decade, that means in my 30s, I need to run about an 11 to 12 second 100-meter sprint. About roughly loose numbers. Again, but think 11 to 12 second 100-meter sprint in my 30s is fast. That is above average. That's, you're getting close to elite. Elite runners are the 10 seconds about, right? I think Usain Bolt is like 9.5 or something like that. So you're talking about moving fast. And, many people that we culturally, most of this is about this cultural shift, because culturally we think we get to our 30s and we're supposed to slow down, or I don't know. And my mindset is no, like you're in your 30s, you're still moving fast, and throughout your whole life you should still be moving fast. I think our big issue is about the investment that we put in and our priorities. We invest in different things and we give our priorities to other things, right? And then because of that, we get slower, and we get slower a lot faster because we train less and we have aging. But I'm saying no, stay on it. This is a reminder that you should be training every day. Kids are fast not just because they're young, but also because they're doing this stuff daily, right? Maybe not as much our kids anymore, but it's a reminder of this idea that if you want to maintain your brain and body health, if you want to maintain independence, you have to make these big investments. You have to be above average. You have to be close to elite. And in order to be that, I need to do this stuff daily while I'm young. So it's a cultural shift around what is important and what we should be investing in. And this mindset that you don't just give up because you're 30. If anything, I want to invest even more time. I want to if I have kids, I want to take my kids to the park and I want to run with them. There's ways to do this stuff. You don't have to make it not enjoyable, especially when you're thinking recreational. You can play with your kids, you can have fun with it. It doesn't have to be this boot camp type of thing. But it's just the idea of shifting your priorities and doing this stuff daily. So yeah, I hope that gives you a little bit of motivation to build a big reserve while you're young. understanding that aging will drop you off. Know that though just because aging happens doesn't mean you can't get better at any age. Interesting thing, I just ran the half marathon and I was looking at the numbers on the New York Roadrunners website of like the elderly population and their times. And you could look at some of that stuff and you see that someone in their 80s, maybe they ran a worse time, and then when they were 84 they ran an even better time. So that's interesting. It's like they got older but their time got better. How could that happen? I'm sure there's a variety of factors, but it also could be that they maybe trained more, right? So if I train 1 day a week in my 30s and then I train 5 days a week in my 50s, I might be more fit in my 50s, right? So there is still this training factor. So aging is happening and training is happening at the same time. And at any age, you can increase your training a bit to increase your fitness ability. So this is not like you're just doomed for this rapid decline. Training plays a big part of it. It's just understanding the idea of aging and how it's going to play an impact on you so you build this big reserve while you're young. So, we'll leave it at that for now. I hope you guys got some good gems. I hope you tune into the full-length episode, and I hope to catch you all soon.